Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining LinkedIn Live. We are streaming now, not just on LinkedIn, but on Twitter and YouTube. I'd love for this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please leave them below. If you feel like someone can benefit from the conversation on how to trust your intuition, how to know if it's your intuition or if it's maybe doubts or fears that are causing you to maybe make decisions that you later regret. If you feel like this can benefit someone, send it along to them. So I'm going to start off by just providing a personal development or a story for myself. Back in the day, I used to not necessarily trust my intuition, and I used to ask a lot of people in my inner circle and family members for advice. This could be just like social interactions with people and how to deal with problem solving with other individuals, whether it be career or in my personal life at that time. And my family and friends, they would often give great advice. And as many as you know that have been here with my LinkedIn Live journey for the past 3 to 4 months, 4 to 5 months possibly, can't recall. But a lot of you know that I have a coach. So back in the day, instead of listening to my intuition, I used to ask a lot of people for their advice. These people were just, again, friends and family. And later on, when I would look back, I realized that asking for advice versus listening to my intuition was not helping me. And a lot of the times too, I realized that there's the intuition that's speaking to you. This could be inner voice. It could be a feeling that you get in your gut. It could just even be, I don't know, maybe your body temperature changes, maybe your mood changes, something just seems off. So let's start off by finding out if this is a real inner voice, intuitive situation, or maybe is this the voice that is speaking for you to not make decisions that will actually bring you out of your comfort zone. So I believe that the intuition, this is not a definition textbook way of looking at it, but I do believe that the intuition is basically there to protect you. It's really there to help you grow. I know back in the day, some of you probably still watch cartoons, but I'm not sure if you remember when a cartoon character, they'd have that kind of angel on one side of their shoulder, and then they would have what they would call like a devil voice on the other side of the shoulder. And I don't know if that's intuition, but I'm just using this metaphor in cartoons when they'd have a positive voice on their shoulder and a negative voice on their shoulder, speaking that sometimes it's not your intuition. These could be a voice inside of you that is your inner child that maybe has not healed. It could be an inner voice inside of you as well that is fear-based, doubt-based, lack-based versus abundant and optimistic, etc. So we have to kind of discern, is it our intuition that's speaking to us, or is it an inner voice that is stemming from a really bad experience or a lots of experiences in the past that are causing you to, or telling you to not go left instead of go right, to go back to friends, family members, or even love relationships that weren't necessarily how can I say it, serving you, but that voice inside of you is the comfort within you that wants you to kind of go back to what you used to do. So you kind of have to ask yourself, is it the intuition or is it a lack fear-based voice or opinion within yourself that's causing you to stay stagnant, stay in the same place and not grow professionally? The other thing that I also want to say too is the intuition. I believe that it's a natural opinion within yourself. I don't believe that an intuition is something that is developed through other people's opinions of you. This could be culture based. Maybe your parents think that you should be doing this with your career or business. That's not your intuition. Those are just external factors or individuals that are doing their best to help you. And in their way, these are family members and friends that are trying to protect you, but they may not always know what's best for you. And this is why I wanted to talk about intuition, because I think a lot of us hear it, and in some cases we listen to it, and in other cases we don't. And then when we have those reflection moments in life, we look back wishing that we had have just listened to what felt right. So let's continue. So one thing that I can recommend is test it out. The next time you want to make a decision in life that is possibly new to you, or maybe it's a same scenario that just keeps happening in life, and that intuitive voice comes up, ask yourself, what is it saying? Why is it saying this to me? And in what circumstances is it saying it? I do believe that when you start to trust your intuition, it becomes like an autopilot situation. For myself, if I don't feel right about something, I often don't do it. And I know for sure which voice it is, whether it's the fear-based or lack voice, or whether it's my intuition. And I can't speak for all of you on the line, but for myself, now that I have my intuitive thought process on autopilot, I actually make, hi, Mr. Tahar, thanks so much. I will do my best to translate from French to English. So Mr. Tahar says, hello, interview participants or speakers, for your explanation on this interesting topic. And it basically says, thank you and salutations. Thank you so much, Mr. Tahar, for joining us today, or joining me today, or us, anybody else that's watching. Can't really see here from StreamYard. Anyways, so you actively listen to those inner thoughts. And once you start realizing that the intuition is there to really protect you, try your best to listen to that versus the external opinions of family members or friends. Now, if you have a mentor or coach, I believe that your mentors and coaches really shouldn't be telling you what to do. I think that they really guide you to the right decisions in life. But when you don't have, maybe it's after hours and you can't speak to your coach or mentor, at some point in life, we all have to make decisions on our own 2 feet, whether our mentors are available or not. They're unfortunately, they're not there with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have their own lives. So at some point you have to trust yourself. And I think that once you start trusting that inner voice, I'll just set up a scenario. Let's say it's after 6 o'clock. In my area, it's getting close to winter. So after 6, it's the sun starts setting and you're downtown and you're going to meet a friend, or maybe you're just running your last errand at that store downtown. Now you're driving and you can either go through the alley that gets right to the back or the front of that store that you need to go to, or maybe you have to take a detour because it's a little bit longer, but it's getting close to sunset and that alley looks empty, right? We've all been through this before. It looks empty and you really want to get there so you can come back and watch your sports game or eat dinner, etc. Now, right before you go through that alley, if your voice is saying, if you hear a voice that's saying to you, go through that alley, who cares if sun is setting, we need to get to where we need to go, we got to watch that NFL game, go through the alley. But then you have that gut feeling that is saying, it might look empty, but we never know what can happen. Let's take the longer route. Most of us, depending on how we're feeling, what we've gone through that day, many of us might take the faster route and listen to the limited fear-based or time-based, shall I say, voice within us to go down the alley. But if you really trust your intuition and it's on autopilot, you will ignore the negative or the lack-based voice within, and you'll listen to your intuition and you'll take the longer route. Because oftentimes, again, we avoid listening to the intuition, we look back and then we regret it, right? So that's just a scenario to set it up for you. Now, I think that I'm running a little bit out of points here, but I just want to say that I do believe that back in the day, all of us have ancestors. There was a time where there was no technology, there were no cell phones, and for whatever reasons, our ancestors, no matter where you're from, they just knew that when the sun was at a certain angle, that was 7 p.m. There were no watches back in these days. I'm talking about prehistoric days where there was no watches. We didn't really have the infrastructure. And I do believe that in our DNA, because we are a part of our ancestors, I do believe that we all have not just an inner voice, but it could just be our senses. I think also adds to the intuition, or maybe now I'm talking about a different, but we have to trust our senses as well. So let's take, for example, we're at the mall. Actually, I'll tell you a story. This is really interesting. a long time ago. I was running errands one day, and I was sitting in front of a bank. I was right about to go into the bank. Won't say the name of the bank. Won't say which city I was in, but I was about to go into the bank, and I don't know what happened, everybody, but I had this intuitive thought that something's going to happen, like there's going to be a robbery or something like that. And this was in a pretty decent area. I was running errands, so I was about 20 minutes away from where I live. And it was not necessarily a bad side of town, but it wasn't I wouldn't live in that side of town, but I had to do banking. I had to go to school. I had to go to work. I was kind of rushing, right? So something that intuition said something bad is going to happen. There's going to be a robbery. But then the other side of me was like, listen, Makita, you have a lot of things to do today. Just go into the bank and do what you have to do. This is a real story. So I went in, the line was long. My intuition said what it said. And I was looking around the bank. I was a little nervous, but you know, that other side of my voice, the time-based, the fear, the get things done quickly based, the time-based part of me was like, don't worry about it. If God forbid, if anything happens, you can run out the exit door. That's kind of like, I know that sounds weird or crazy, but that's what I was thinking at the time. So I literally left the bank, and then across the street there was a robbery. So this was across the street. So there was a busy intersection, and across the street, as I was driving by, there was a robbery across the street. And initially, at first, I didn't know it was a robbery. I just saw a lot of cars, cop cars in that plaza across the street. But when I checked the news that evening, there was a robbery. So thank goodness that robbery didn't happen at the bank that I was in at the time, but it happened across the street. So it's a little hard because you're going to have these moments where you have a time-based thing within you, or a limitation-based thing within you, or your ego is telling you one thing, but your intuition is telling you another thing. And in that particular scenario, nothing happened in the bank I was in, but it happened within the vicinity, and it could have escalated into something more. So looking back, that was one scenario where I told myself, wow, I didn't get impacted by what happened across the street, but my intuition was warning me, not now. So you're going to have moments like that too, where you're going to trust your intuition, but then there are other factors and things that are not feeling right. Or let's say last weekend, last Sunday, before I went on my live stream, I was going live in my car with Sandra Kenley, as many of you were watching. And I was actually at a park. I wanted to film at a park, have nice, some scenic greenery in the background, some coniferous trees in the background. Some of you know these as Christmas trees where I'm at. And I just wanted to have that in my background as I was going live. And something inside of me before I left said, you probably shouldn't go to the park, but I rushed and went to the park anyways to be on time for the live stream. As I pulled up, I saw a coyote outside, and then I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have time to go back home and set up. I just have to do this live stream in my car. So what you're going to notice when you start listening more to your intuition more than other people, external factors, or other things within yourself that are based on limitation, is you're going to sometimes not necessarily listen to your intuition, and then you get to the situation or that scenario happens and you realize, okay, I'm protected, but I still didn't listen to my intuition because my ego or my time-based part of my mindset is telling me I need to rush something. So you're going to kind of go through these scenarios in life where something bad isn't going to happen to you, but maybe before you make that decision, something is going to come up, like the coyote at the park. Let's say that I decided to go to the park earlier. Maybe I would have been filming and the coyote would have been dancing around me or moving around me or across from me. And, you know, so I think that as human beings, we truly are all doing our best. And I do believe that the decisions that we all make are often influenced by different factors, such as what's on the news, what we see on social media, beliefs within our culture, traumatic experiences, positive experiences, our ego, among other things. But I do believe that once we all get to a place where it's okay to make the best decisions that feel right to us, I call it the feeling thermometer, where you kind of go through life and if something doesn't feel right, then I think if your intuition is not speaking, or you're kind of confused whether you should listen to it, you should kind of trust that feeling thermometer within your soul. And sometimes when things don't feel right, it could just be that you know, a part of you wants to stay in comfort, which can lead to stagnancy, which is just a fancy word for staying in the same place and not moving forward or growing or healing or becoming the best version of yourself or becoming better at something. And I often think that it's just really good to kind of test out this intuition thing and trust your feelings and trust your senses. Trust what you're seeing, trust what you're feeling, trust what you're hearing, trust what you're smelling. And this often, these senses of ours can often kind of become unfamiliar to us, especially with everything that's happening in the world. There's so much uncertainty, and it can feel very confusing sometimes when we can't see, or we see something and it's conflicting. It's kind of like that thing in school where they used to make us put what do you call it, those paper phones, and put a line to it, and then we would say something in it, and it got around to about 5 or 10 people, and everybody had their own interpretation of what happened. So it's not just trusting your intuition. Oh, Joe Gunnery says trust. Yes, we have to trust what we're thinking. We have to trust what we're feeling. I'm glad that I have 2 men on the line here that are masculine men. And I think that in some ways or another, men often don't want to listen to their feelings. They want to listen to their logic, which I think is great, because all men and women have, you know, feminine and masculine qualities and traits, caregiving traits, you know, logical traits, etc. But even as men, trusting your feelings, you know, maybe you might be single, or maybe you're at work, or maybe you let an old friend back into your life, and you're excited to see this old friend, but then it just doesn't feel right. Something's off about this person, but you don't want to tell them, hey, can't hang out with you anymore, because you're still the same person, but just something doesn't feel right. So I think that when we get to a point where we trust our intuition, and we trust what we're feeling when we're around people, places, and things. I mean, quite often I've gone to, I have this favorite park that I like to go to. It's about 30-45 minutes away from my house. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, 45 minutes, that's a lot of time. That's gas wasted, right? And sometimes when I pull up to the park in my car, something doesn't feel right. Now, this is a beautiful neighborhood, so I'm not trying to say I go to a park in a really sketchy neighborhood. No, this is a beautiful, high class, it's a beautiful neighborhood. But sometimes when I get to this scenic park, and I park my car, it just doesn't feel right. And then I'm like, but I just drove 45 minutes and I wasted 20 something dollars in gas. Do I really want to go home? But because I trust myself and I trust what I'm feeling, I also want to live a very long, healthy, and safe life. So sometimes I will just leave the park after 45 minutes or an hour of getting there and go back home. And sometimes I just always do this, everybody. I like to, even if it's a repetitive place that I like to go, if it looks isolated, if it doesn't feel right, I'm leaving. It doesn't matter if I just wasted $25 in gas. So I have a couple of minutes here. If anyone wants to leave a comment below, thanks again, Joe Gunnery, for, I do agree that we need to trust ourselves and trust what we're thinking and feeling, and trust our intuition, because it has our back. It's there to help us. And if you have a chance, when you have some time, if you want to try this exercise, look back in your life and look at the major decisions that you've made, or recent decisions, and ask yourself, was your intuition speaking to you at that time? Did you listen to your intuition at that time? And this could be positive outcomes after decisions you've made, or negative outcomes. Ask yourself, was it intuition-based or was it lack-based? Was it a fear-based decision or was it a time-based decision? Was your ego getting the best of you and saying, well, I deserve this, or it should be my way? Or was it the compassionate, loving, kind intuition that was speaking to you? And if you're realizing now that a lot of decisions that went left in the wrong direction were because you ignored your intuition, maybe it's time to let it run on autopilot and start trusting it. It's there to help you. So we have a couple of seconds left. Again, thank you so much for the comments, gentlemen. Mr. Al Balhaj Tahar, you come on quite often to my live streams, and I appreciate that. And Joe Gunnery, thanks again for leaving that comment about trust. And I will make sure to update you this upcoming Wednesday on the next live stream. I will have new guests come on to talk about different things like mental health, life decisions, career-based stuff, etc. And if you have any recommendations on what you'd like me to talk about, let me know. Often these topics just come up at the top of my head, just conversations I have with people when I'm out and about, family members or friends. I'm just trying to think about what's the best thing that I can bring, what I can bring up and what will add value to all of you so life can be easier for all of us. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, and take care. Happy Sunday. Bye.